And
Okay, Mr. Smith, we're just going to do a quick check today. It's a routine part of your annual physical.
If you're over 65, listen closely. Some of the most common health checkups, the ones you've been told are routine, safe, and even necessary, could be quietly pushing you closer to surgery, stroke, or even cancer. Yes, cancer. Every year, millions of seniors line up for tests thinking they're protecting themselves, when in reality, some of those very tests may be the start of a dangerous chain reaction. Here's the truth most doctors never say out loud. New studies show that nearly 37% of medical tests in seniors are unnecessary. That means almost 4 out of every 10 tests lead to treatments, medications, or procedures you never needed. And it gets worse. One type of test, often marketed as preventive, may now be responsible for up to 5% of all cancers in the United States. That's the same number of cancers caused by drinking alcohol every single day. Imagine this. The very test that was supposed to protect your life may end it early. For decades, seniors have been told to trust the system. Your doctor says you need a scan, you get a scan. Your doctor says you need a scope, you book it right away. But what if blind trust is the biggest risk of all? After 65, your body changes. The tests you took at 50 don't always make sense at 70. Yet, many clinics run you through the same checklists without explaining the hidden dangers. It's not about bad doctors. It's about a medical system that tests first, explains later, and sometimes never explains at all. Think of it this way. Every test you take opens a door. Some doors lead to reassurance, but other doors lead to invasive procedures, dangerous medications, or lifelong complications. And once you step through, it's almost impossible to go back. Why does this matter for you right now? Because after 65, the risks are higher. The prep for certain tests can dehydrate you, sedatives can affect your brain, contrast dyes can damage your kidneys, and radiation exposure can trigger cancers years down the line. And here's the part no one likes to admit. Once a test shows something unusual, even if it's harmless, you can be pushed into a spiral of biopsies, surgeries, and medications. For many, that spiral doesn't end well. This isn't about fear-mongering, it's about awareness. Because knowing which tests to avoid can mean the difference between staying independent, strong, and healthy, or losing months or years to unnecessary hospital visits. So in this video, we're uncovering the 5 health checkups you should avoid after 65, the ones that could quietly do more harm than good. We'll look at the hidden dangers, the overlooked science, and the real-life stories of seniors who trusted too much, only to discover too late that the test was the problem. And stay with me, because you won't believe which test made it all the way to number 2 on this list. But before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and let us know. Where are you watching from? How old are you? And have you ever regretted taking a medical test or procedure? Do you think seniors are tested too much? We read every single comment and we reply with personalized tips and advice. Now let's begin. The first test on our list looks completely harmless. No needles, no pain, just a quick scan. But for thousands of seniors, it's been the start of years of side effects, wasted money, and even fractured lives. Let's talk about why a simple bone density scan could quietly ruin your quality of life. Now, let's begin. The first test on our list looks completely harmless. No needles, no pain, just a quick scan. But for thousands of seniors, it's been the start of years of side effects, wasted money, and even fractured lives. I'm talking about the bone density scan, also known as the DEXA scan. On the surface, it feels like one of the safest medical procedures out there. You lie down, a machine glides over you, and in a few minutes, you walk out with a number. That number supposedly tells you how strong your bones are and whether you're at risk for osteoporosis or fractures. It sounds simple. It sounds harmless. But here's the truth no one explains. Especially after 65, these scans often create more fear than benefit. Bone loss is natural as we age. Just like wrinkles, grey hair, or slower reflexes, it happens to everyone. But the DEXA scan doesn't account for the fact that bones naturally thin as the years go by without it necessarily being dangerous. That means many older adults walk away with results that sound frightening: osteopenia or low bone density. But in reality, their bones are no weaker than any other 70-year-old who has never broken a bone in their life. What happens next? Too often, a prescription pad comes out. Doctors push medications like bisphosphonates, drugs that promise stronger bones, but come with side effects that can be worse than the mild condition they're supposed to treat. Take Rose, for example. A 76-year-old retired piano teacher. She had never fallen, never broken a bone, and she walked daily. Her doctor sent her for a DEXA scan during her annual checkup. The result? Osteopenia. Nothing severe, nothing life-threatening. But she was immediately placed on a medication called alendronate, one of the most common bone drugs. Within 3 months, Rose developed severe acid reflux, jaw pain, and constant discomfort that left her unable to play piano, the passion of her life. Imagine that. A woman who had taught children for decades, whose fingers had danced across the keys her entire adult life, suddenly unable to sit at the instrument that gave her joy, all because of a pill she never truly needed. When Rose came off the medication, her symptoms began to fade. Instead, she was guided toward natural strategies proven to help seniors far more than pills: weight-bearing exercises with resistance bands, vitamin D supplementation, and a calcium-rich diet that included sardines, leafy greens, and nuts. A year later, she was performing again. Her legs were stronger, her balance improved, and most importantly, she had no fractures. This isn't an isolated case. Research shows the same pattern again and again. In one large study following more than 200 women over 70, those who took bisphosphonates saw less than a 1% reduction in fracture risk after 5 years. That's right, less than 1%. Yet those same women reported far higher rates of digestive issues, inflammation in the esophagus, and even rare conditions where parts of the jawbone began to die. The lesson here is clear. For seniors who haven't broken a bone, who don't suffer from repeated falls, and who live active lives, bone density scans may do more harm than good. Because what follows isn't reassurance, it's fear. Fear of a number on a page, fear that drives doctors to medicate, and fear that steals quality of life through side effects. And here's the empowering part. There are safer, smarter ways to protect your bones. Lifestyle has been shown to reduce fractures by over 20%, far more than medication in many cases. Strength training, daily walking, balance exercises like Tai Chi, and making sure you have enough vitamin D are the true protectors. It's not about a machine telling you your worth. It's about living in a way that keeps you strong. So when your doctor suggests a DEXA scan after 65, ask the question they rarely prepare for: what happens next? If the scan shows mild bone loss, will you be pushed toward a drug you may not need? Or will you be guided to safer, healthier lifestyle choices? That one question could save you years of unnecessary medication. But if bone scans can trap seniors in cycles of fear and side effects, the next test on this list is even more dangerous. Because it doesn't just create fear, It can send you down a road toward invasive procedures and even brain surgery. And the cruel irony? Most of the time, it was never needed in the first place. Let's talk about the brain MRI for memory loss and why it may quietly rob you of your peace of mind. But if bone scans can trap seniors in cycles of fear and side effects, the next test on this list is even more dangerous. Because it doesn't just create fear, it can send you down a road toward invasive procedures and even brain surgery. And the cruel irony? Most of the time, it was never needed in the first place. I'm talking about the brain MRI for memory loss. Let's be honest. One of the greatest fears after 65 is losing your memory. Forgetting where you placed your keys is frustrating, but forgetting your grandchildren's names? That thought alone terrifies millions of seniors. And when those lapses begin, slight confusion, repeating yourself more often, forgetting appointments, the natural impulse is fear of dementia, fear of Alzheimer's, fear that your mind is slipping away forever. Doctors, wanting to reassure, often respond the same way. Let's order a brain MRI. It sounds reasonable. After all, an MRI is one of the most detailed scans of the human brain. It can pick up even the smallest structural changes, white matter spots, or areas of shrinkage. The problem is, in older adults, those findings are almost always normal. The vast majority of MRIs after 65 show things that look alarming on paper, but are nothing more than signs of aging. White spots, minor shrinkage, mild changes in blood flow. Completely normal. Yet when those results are handed to a senior, the words abnormality or age-related changes set off panic. Panic leads to more testing, more procedures, and sometimes even unnecessary surgeries. Let me give you an example. George, a 74-year-old retired engineer, came in worried about his memory. He sometimes forgot names, misplaced his keys, repeated the same question once or twice. Sound familiar? It's the kind of forgetfulness almost everyone experiences as the years go on. His doctor, wanting to be thorough, sent him for a brain MRI. The results came back with a phrase that would terrify anyone. White matter abnormalities. George was convinced he had dementia. Overnight, he stopped driving. He stopped going to church. He pulled back from his friends. Within months, his anxiety grew worse than his memory ever had. He walked into the clinic, hunched, defeated, convinced his life was over. But when he was properly tested with a simple cognitive exam, the kind you can do with pen and paper, his score was completely normal for his age. The MRI findings, nothing more than routine aging changes. Once George understood that, once he saw that his memory lapses were within the normal range, his confidence returned. He started focusing on real brain health, better sleep, hydration, regular exercise, and mental games that challenged his mind. Within weeks, he was back to his old self. No surgery, no invasive tests, just the truth he should have heard from the start. And George is not alone. A study published in 2021 looked at over 3,000 MRIs in patients between 70 and 85 with mild memory complaints. 86% of those scans showed abnormalities. But here's the shocking part. Only 3% of those findings were linked to an actual treatable condition. That means 97% of patients went through the emotional toll of being told something was wrong, when nothing was wrong at all. Worse, nearly 12% were pushed into invasive follow-ups like spinal taps, brain biopsies, or repeat scans. Procedures that carried their own risks, and in most cases, brought no benefit. So what's the better approach? Unless you're experiencing severe symptoms, like sudden personality changes, seizures, or a rapid decline in function, a brain MRI is rarely the right first step. Instead, A cognitive screening test is far more effective. It's cheap, non-invasive, and accurate enough to determine whether you truly need more investigation. For most seniors, these simple tests provide clarity without creating fear. And unlike an MRI, they don't plant seeds of doubt that grow into panic. Here's what this means for you. If you feel your memory slipping, don't let fear push you straight into the MRI machine. Ask your doctor about cognitive screening first. And if your doctor insists on scanning right away, ask the question no one asks enough. What happens if this test finds something? Because the truth is, most of the time, the answer will be nothing. Nothing actionable. Nothing that improves your life. But what you could gain instead is weeks, months, even years of unnecessary fear. So if the bone scan risks trapping you in pills you don't need, and the brain MRI risks trapping you in fear that doesn't match reality, what comes next may be even more dangerous. Because unlike memory loss, which is slow, the next test can lead to sudden hospital stays, dangerous surgeries, and a spiral of medical procedures that begin with something as innocent as mild fatigue. Let's talk about the cardiac stress test and why, after 65, this common heart checkup can turn into a trap. So if the bone scan risks trapping you in pills you don't need, and the brain MRI risks trapping you in fear that doesn't match reality, what comes next may be even more dangerous. Because unlike memory loss, which creeps in slowly, the next test can lead to sudden hospital stays, dangerous surgeries, and a spiral of medical procedures that begin with something as innocent as mild fatigue. I'm talking about the cardiac stress test. It's one of the most common heart tests prescribed to seniors. You've probably heard of it. You walk on a treadmill while connected to monitors, or you're given medication that makes your heart beat faster, simulating exercise. Doctors say it's a way to check for blocked arteries. Sounds smart, right? Keep the heart safe, find problems early. But here's the uncomfortable truth. After 65, the cardiac stress test is often more trap than protection. That's because in older adults, it has a shockingly high false positive rate. In plain language, the test says you have a heart problem when you really don't. How often? Studies show that in seniors, the rate can be as high as 40%. Imagine 4 out of every 10 results being wrong. And when the test says something's wrong, doctors don't shrug it off. They send you for more tests. Angiograms, catheterizations, procedures where they insert a tube into your arteries to look for blockages. And if they see even the slightest narrowing, even one that may not cause any harm, they often put in a stent. But here's the cruel irony. Research has shown again and again that many of those stents bring no improvement in survival or quality of life. What they do bring, however, are risks. Bleeding, kidney injury from the contrast dye, prolonged hospital stays, and sometimes lifelong complications. Let me tell you about Raymond, a 75-year-old retired postman. He stayed active, walking miles every day, delivering letters and chatting with neighbors. During a routine checkup, he mentioned that he sometimes felt tired walking uphill. His doctor, just to be safe, scheduled a stress test. The results came back abnormal. That word alone was enough to set the wheels in motion. Within days, Raymond was scheduled for a catheterization. They found a mild narrowing and decided to place a stent. But that night, his kidneys reacted badly to the contrast dye. He developed severe kidney problems and spent 6 days in the hospital. He was poked, prodded, and monitored for hours at a time. His life was disrupted, his confidence shaken. And the worst part? The fatigue he complained about never changed. Why? Because it wasn't a heart issue to begin with. He was simply an older man who needed more hydration and a little rest between meals. Raymond's story isn't rare. In 2017, a major study published in JAMA Cardiology revealed that more than half of all stents placed after stress test referrals were unnecessary. Half. And those patients didn't live longer, didn't feel better, didn't suddenly regain energy. What they did experience were risks that never should have been there. This is the reality of the cardiac stress test after 65. It's less about safety and more about opening the door to procedures that may cause more harm than good. So, what's the safer way? If you're not experiencing classic warning signs like chest pain during activity, shortness of breath with light exertion, or significant drops in energy when walking, a stress test isn't the answer. Safer alternatives exist. A resting EKG, which checks the heart's rhythm while you're still, can catch major issues without risk. A coronary calcium scan, which uses low radiation to look for plaque, is another option that carries far less danger than the stress test treadmill. These tests don't push seniors into unnecessary surgeries. They provide useful information without opening the door to harm. Here's what matters most. If you're over 65 and your doctor recommends a stress test, don't say yes immediately. Ask why. Ask if there are safer options. And ask what happens if the test finds something. Because too often, the answer isn't peace of mind. It's a trip to the hospital you never needed. And if that makes your heart race a little, wait until you hear what's next. Because while stress tests can lead to unnecessary surgeries, the next procedure has a very different kind of danger. It can dehydrate you, weaken your body, and in some cases, even tear your insides. It's a test almost every senior has been told to take, and yet, after 65, it may do more harm than good. Let's talk about colonoscopy and why this test deserves its place on the list. And if that makes your heart race a little, wait until you hear what's next. Because while stress tests can lead to unnecessary surgeries, the next procedure has a very different kind of danger. It can dehydrate you, weaken your body, and in some cases, even tear your insides. It's a test almost every senior has been told to take, and yet, after 65, it may do more harm than good. I'm talking about colonoscopy. For decades, colonoscopy has been seen as the gold standard of cancer prevention. A long camera inserted into the colon, searching for polyps that could one day turn malignant. Doctors, hospitals, insurance companies, everyone repeats the same message: get your colonoscopy. And yes, when you're younger, when risk is rising and the body is resilient, the test can save lives. But after 65, and especially after 70, the risks begin to outweigh the rewards. And almost no one tells seniors the truth. Let's start with the preparation. To cleanse the colon, you're required to drink harsh laxatives that flush everything out. For someone in their 40s, it's unpleasant. But for someone in their 70s, it can be dangerous. Severe dehydration, dizziness, kidney strain, these are not minor side effects. Seniors are far more vulnerable, and many end up weakened before the test even begins. Then comes sedation. For older brains, sedation carries real risks: confusion, delirium, even long-term memory changes. Seniors who were sharp before can find themselves foggy and forgetful for weeks after a procedure that was supposed to protect them. And the procedure itself. Most people assume it's safe, but every colonoscopy carries the risk of complications: bleeding, bowel perforation, or heart rhythm problems triggered by the anesthesia. The older you are, the higher those risks climb. A 2019 study of over 1.3 million Medicare patients aged 70 and older revealed something shocking. For every 1,000 colonoscopies, only 2 lives were saved. But more than 20 people suffered serious complications. That's a 10-to-1 risk-to-benefit ratio. 10 harmed for every 2 helped. And then there are the polyps. Even when they're found, many are small, slow-growing, or harmless. Removing them in an older adult sometimes causes more harm than leaving them alone. But once a polyp is seen, doctors rarely recommend waiting. The removal becomes almost automatic, and the risks multiply. Dana knows this pain all too well. At 73, she ran a small bakery with her daughter. She was healthy, active, with no symptoms, no bleeding, no changes in her stool, no family history of colon cancer. But her new doctor urged her to get a colonoscopy, just to be safe. She agreed. During the test, they found a small polyp and removed it. That night, she collapsed with severe abdominal pain. At the hospital, she was diagnosed with a bowel perforation. She spent 9 days in recovery, lost 10 pounds, and struggled to get back on her feet. The irony? She had already had 2 clean colonoscopies in the past. There was no reason to repeat it, no reason to suffer. Dana's story is a warning. Colonoscopy after 65 should never be automatic. The US Preventive Services Task Force already recommends stopping routine colon cancer screening at 75 for most people. Yet too many seniors are still pushed toward the scope, unaware that safer options exist. Tests like the FITI stool test, which you can do at home, are non-invasive, low risk, and still catch the majority of concerning cases. No prep, no sedation, no days of recovery. So the next time someone insists you just get a colonoscopy, stop and ask, do I have symptoms? Am I truly at risk? Or am I being guided into a pipeline that benefits the system more than it benefits me? Your life, your independence, your health are too valuable to gamble on a test that may leave you weaker than before. And if you thought colonoscopy was shocking, wait until you hear the #1 test on this list. It's marketed as cutting edge, sold as peace of mind, and offered in executive clinics as the ultimate preventive screen. But in reality, it may be one of the most dangerous practices in modern medicine. Because this test doesn't just harm some seniors, it may now be responsible for thousands of new cancer cases every single year. Let's talk about the full-body CT scan and why it could quietly be the most dangerous checkup of them all. And if you thought colonoscopy was shocking, wait until you hear the #1 test on this list. It's marketed as cutting edge, sold as peace of mind, and offered in executive clinics as the ultimate preventive screen. But in reality, it may be one of the most dangerous practices in modern medicine. Because this test doesn't just harm some seniors, it may now be responsible for thousands of new cancer cases every single year. I'm talking about the full-body CT scan. At first glance, it sounds brilliant. Scan the entire body, top to bottom, to catch disease before it has a chance to grow. Find cancer early. Spot silent killers. That's the promise. But the reality is much darker. Each full-body CT scan exposes you to an enormous amount of radiation, 10 to 20 millisieverts. To put that in perspective, that's the same as getting 500 chest X-rays at once. And radiation like that doesn't just vanish. It lingers in the body, damaging DNA, planting seeds that years later can grow into cancer. According to a 2023 study, the rise in CT scans across the United States may now be responsible for up to 5% of all cancers, 1 in every 20. That means the very test you thought would save your life could actually be the cause of the disease you feared most. And the danger doesn't stop there. These scans are so sensitive, they find things that don't matter. Tiny nodules in the lungs, small cysts in the kidneys, benign calcifications in the arteries, harmless little marks of aging that millions of people carry with no consequence. But once they're spotted, the red flags go up. More tests are ordered, more scans, needle biopsies, surgeries. Suddenly, a senior who felt perfectly fine is lying in a hospital bed, recovering from a procedure for something that never needed attention in the first place. Take Marcus, for example, an 80-year-old who had spent his retirement teaching martial arts to younger seniors. He was vibrant, strong, independent. As part of an elite senior checkup package at a private clinic, he agreed to a full-body CT scan. The result? A tiny 3 mm nodule in his lung. Too small to be dangerous. Too small to even worry about. But the machine didn't say, "Ignore this." It said, "Abnormal." That word triggered a cascade. Marcus was sent for a PET scan, then a biopsy. During the biopsy, part of his lung collapsed. What followed was hospitalization, weeks of recovery, and months of lost independence. And in the end, the biopsy revealed what should have been obvious. His nodule was benign, harmless. He had suffered for nothing. Stories like Marcus's are the reason the American College of Radiology has taken a firm stance. Full-body CT scans should never be used for general screening in healthy, asymptomatic adults. There is no proven benefit. None. What there is, however, is risk. Significant, life-altering risk. So what should you do instead? Listen to your body. If you have symptoms, unexplained weight loss, coughing up blood, sudden lumps or swelling, then targeted imaging makes sense. A chest CT if there's a persistent cough, an abdominal scan if there's unexplained pain. Imaging has its place when there's a reason. But scanning the entire body, just to be sure? That's like searching for treasure with a landmine detector. You might find something, but you're far more likely to trigger a disaster you never asked for. The lesson here is not that testing is always bad. It's that testing without reason, testing without symptoms, and testing without clear benefit can quietly rob you of your health instead of preserving it. And at 65, 70, or 80 years old, you deserve better than that. You deserve tests that make you stronger, not weaker. Care that gives you freedom, not fear. So now you know the 5 tests most seniors should avoid after 65. Bone scans that create more panic than protection. Brain MRIs that spark fear instead of clarity. Stress tests that lead to unnecessary surgeries. Colonoscopies that may harm more than they help. And full-body CT scans that could cause the very cancers they claim to prevent. But this video isn't just about what to avoid. It's about how to live. Because the real protection isn't in machines or endless testing. It's in the simple, powerful lifestyle choices you make every day. So now you know the 5 tests most seniors should avoid after 65. Bone scans that create more panic than protection. Brain MRIs that spark fear instead of clarity. Stress tests that lead to unnecessary surgeries. Colonoscopies that may harm more than they help, and full-body CT scans that could cause the very cancers they claim to prevent. But this video isn't just about what to avoid, it's about how to live. Because the real protection isn't in machines or endless testing, it's in the simple, powerful lifestyle choices you make every single day. Think about it. A machine can scan your bones, but it cannot make them strong. That comes from you, lifting a set of light weights, walking each morning, practicing balance with Tai Chi, stretching gently to keep your muscles alive and responsive. These are the things proven to reduce fractures by more than 20%, while many bone drugs barely move the needle. A scan can show age spots in your brain, but it can't sharpen your memory. That comes from good sleep, drinking enough water, eating brain-healthy foods, and challenging yourself with puzzles, reading, or even learning something new. A treadmill stress test might tell you there's a maybe blockage, but nothing improves your heart like a daily walk, a plate filled with colourful vegetables, and keeping your blood pressure under control with real habits, not panic-driven procedures, and colonoscopies. The truth is, Real colon health comes from fiber, from beans, whole grains, vegetables, and fruits that keep things moving, from staying hydrated, from avoiding smoking and cutting down processed foods, lifestyle choices that are powerful, simple, and within your reach. And as for those high-tech full-body scans, no machine can replace the oldest, most powerful form of prevention: listening to your body, noticing when you're unusually tired, paying attention to new pains that don't go away, seeking care when something changes, instead of chasing diseases that may never appear. Here's what the science is clear on. Seniors who stay active, who eat well, who sleep deeply, who spend time with family and community, who laugh and stay socially engaged, those seniors live longer, stronger, and more independent lives than those who live in fear of machines and medical checklists. Tests have their place, but they are not the fountain of youth. You are. So the next time your doctor says, "Let's run this test," stop and ask the one question that could save you from months or even years of unnecessary suffering. What happens next if this test finds something? If the answer is unclear, if it sounds like more tests, more procedures, more side effects, maybe it's time to pause. Maybe the best prevention isn't another scan, but another walk, not another scope, but another meal of fresh, wholesome food, not another injection, but another night of deep, restful sleep. You have the power to choose wisely, to say yes when it's necessary, but to also say no when the risks outweigh the rewards. You have the power to protect your independence, your energy, and your joy. Modern medicine is powerful, but it isn't perfect. And sometimes the best medicine isn't in a pill bottle or inside a machine. It's in the choices you make each day. You've just heard the hidden truth about the 5 medical checkups seniors over 65 should think twice about. But let's pause for a moment and loop back to where we started. At the beginning of this video, I told you that some tests could push you towards surgery, stroke, or even cancer. Now you know exactly which ones. Bone scans that trap you in pills with painful side effects. Brain MRIs that plant fear where there's no disease. Stress tests that push you onto operating tables you never needed. Colonoscopies that can tear you apart in the name of prevention. And full-body CT scans that may actually create the cancers they promise to stop. And yet, despite all of this, many seniors still walk into clinics each year, trusting the system blindly, believing that more testing means more safety. But you know better now. You know that sometimes less is more. You know that true prevention comes not from over-testing, but from living wisely, staying strong, eating well, sleeping deeply, and listening to your own body. So here's my challenge for you. The next time a doctor suggests a test, don't just nod. Ask, what happens next if this test finds something? If the answer is vague, if it leads only to more testing, more procedures, or more fear, then maybe the smartest choice is to pause. Maybe the most powerful medicine is the courage to say no. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced complications from a test you later discovered wasn't necessary? Did a scan or a procedure steal weeks, months, or even years from your life? Share your story in the comments, not just for us, but for every senior watching right now who may be walking into the same trap. Your story could save someone else's health. If this video opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a sibling, or a neighbor who's over 65. Because knowledge like this can protect families, preserve independence, and keep people out of hospital beds they don't belong in. And don't forget to subscribe, because every week we uncover the truths seniors aren't being told and bring you science-backed, life-saving advice that can change how you age. And before you go, let me leave you with one final thought. If these 5 tests can cause this much harm, imagine what's hiding in your medicine cabinet. Imagine which pills you're taking right now that might not be helping at all. In our next video, we reveal the 2 vitamins that quietly weaken seniors' legs after 65. If you want to stay strong, keep your balance, and avoid the falls that take too many lives each year, you need to hear this. Click right here to watch it now. Because your health isn't about more testing, it's about more living. And the choices you make today could give you years of strength, independence, and freedom tomorrow.